Hey everybody, it's John here with the Cloud Bureau, and today we have the fifth and final installment in our series of videos on effective data dictionary reporting in Salesforce. If you have not seen the previous videos in this playlist or this series, you'll want to head over to our YouTube channel and find the playlist about creating effective data dictionaries in Salesforce. If you have been on this journey with us, you'll know that we've already covered the whys and wherefores of creating data dictionaries in your Salesforce org. We've talked about the importance of field classification metadata in data dictionary reporting. We've looked at an approach to data dictionary aware field management, both in terms of creating new custom fields and also managing standard fields. And we've created a field dictionary report type and a sample report for accounts and one other custom object. In this last video, we're going to talk about object dictionary reporting. And the power of object dictionary reporting is it gives you a live look at the objects that are actively in use in your implementation and not the ones that are not in use in your implementation. If you're a Salesforce subscriber, you likely know that when you get your Salesforce org and you look in administration and you go to the object setup, there might be a ton of objects in the implementation or the org that you are not actively using. They're not an active part of your business's day-to-day strategy, and they don't play a role in the work that your end users do. This is a way to separate out those objects that are in use from those that are not, and this can be critical for future development efforts. It can be critical for onboarding new administrators and developers, whether contract or full-time, and it can also be important to things like internal audit, where you're asked to provide some sort of indication of the footprint of your Salesforce implementation. With that, we're going to hop into Salesforce and start creating this object dictionary. As we have been throughout this series, I'm in a developer edition org, and I'm on the custom reports types page. The caveat we always make is that if you are doing this kind of work, you want to do it in a sandbox and then migrate it forward, just so that you maintain good DevOps and change management practices. I'm going to create a new custom report type. And for the primary object, I'm going to use the same one that we use for our field dictionary, which is entity definitions, because we're reporting on objects. And for the display label, I'm going to call this the object dictionary. I'll remove the underscore as I like to do. And for the description, we'll say it's a custom report type for object dictionary reporting. We're going to store it in administrative reports, and we'll say that it's deployed. Now, you might think that because this is an object dictionary report, that the only thing we need is the entity definitions. But this is where the name field and what I've referred to as the magic of the name field comes into play. If we were to just use entity definitions, we would see every object that's available to us in our org, not just the ones that are actively in use. And so we need some way to sort of narrow this report down to look at the objects that we have in use and those that we don't. And the way that we're going to do this is by adding another object, which is the field definition object, and we'll leave the default option of each A record must have at least one related B record. I'm going to save this. We are going to edit the layout. We'll go ahead and update our entity definitions display label to objects, and we'll leave field definitions as is. Now, because this is an object dictionary, what we care about are the attributes on the object or the entity definition itself. We care less about a lot of the field definition fields that are available to us, but there are certain ones that we're going to need to be able to scope this report down to our list of objects that are actively in use. So I'm going to get rid of some of these. We'll get rid of most of them, but qualified API name we're going to keep. We're also going to keep this field that says, is field a name field, which is a checkbox or Boolean field. We're also going to scope this down and only get one other field, which is our field usage. So again, we leave the entity definition, which we relabeled as objects, as default. For field definitions, we're keeping qualified API name, is field a name field, and field usage. We're going to save this. We'll close, and we'll close out of our custom report type. With that, we're going to head into the main UI or the non-setup UI. And here I'm on the reports tab, and we're going to create a sample report of our object dictionary. And again, we should only ever need one of these for our org, although there might be some circumstances in which you need additional. I'll change the category to all. I'll find the object dictionary report type that we just created, and we'll start the report. I'm going to call this the Cloud Bureau Object Dictionary. And for the filters for now, I'm just going to change created date to all time. We will come back and add some additional filters. I'll get rid of the default field that's here, and I'm going to add some fields to our report, including the master label of the object, the qualified API name of the object, the plural label, in case that's something that we want to see, the description, and I'll have more to say about that in a moment. We're going to add fields for the various sharing models, both the internal sharing model and also the external sharing model. And then we'll pull in some fields that we have the capacity to populate whenever we create new custom objects. So whether reports are enabled, whether activities are tracked, whether field history is tracked, and whether it's searchable. So again, things that you can define for an object when you're setting it up. We can see in this report. Now there are a bunch of other fields in the entity definition that we might want to see, like namespace, prefix, is it apex triggerable, lots of different kinds of things. Again, the audience of this report is going to determine what shows up for you. We're just trying to get a baseline understanding of the objects that are actively in use in our org. Now, when I look at the preview results, you're going to see that we have a bunch of rows for the account object. We only actually want to see one row for the account object because this is a report of objects. And this is where the magic of the name field comes in. You might know that in Salesforce, every S object or every account, contact, those kinds of things has a one and only one name field. Now, the API name of that name field is not always name. In the case of a task, for example, it is subject, but it is nevertheless sort of referred to as the name field. And this is where the fields that we added from the field definition object come into play. We're going to head over to filters, and we're going to get that is field a name field, and we'll say true. What that's going to do is bring us down to one row per object, because we're only looking at, again, in the background, the field definition for the name field specifically. Let's save and run this and see what it looks like. I'm going to clean up the unique report name. And we'll store this in our data dictionary reports folder. Now, you see here that there are 717 total records, including things like platform cache partition, custom libraries, Tableau host mapping. These are objects that come standard with the org that we're using for demonstration, which is an NPC or nonprofit cloud org. But undoubtedly, your org is going to have some objects that would show up in this report that you are not actively using in your implementation. And so the question is, how do we get those down so that we can see a precise list of the objects that are actively in use for our org? If you have seen or go back to watch our video on field metadata classification, you'll know that I'm a huge advocate of putting in a field usage value for the name field on every object that is actively in use in the org, and having a null value for the name field for every object that is not in use in the org. And the reason for that is because that's what's going to allow us to filter this down to see only those objects that we're actively using in our org. I'm going to edit again, and I'm going to add one more filter. And in this case, I'm going to grab the field usage status. And for name fields, by and large, the value of the field usage is going to be active. So I'm going to select that as active and hit apply. And you'll see here that we have filtered down our report even more. Let's save and run. And what we're going to get is a report with two line items, the account object and the demo object. Now, again, this is a demonstration, so in most orgs, there are going to be more objects than just these two, or just one standard and one custom object that are actively in use in your org. This is just for demonstration purposes, but the two critical filters are this is field and name field. That gets us one row per object. and then the field usage being active. And if we have good hygiene, good stewardship of our data dictionary reports at the level of field classification, we should always have on demand and available to us a list of the objects that are actively in use in our org. Now, why is this important? It could be important for a lot of reasons. In a consulting context, a lot of times I've been asked to do an assessment of an org. And one of the things that I want to know as soon as I go into an organization for the first time is, what are you actively using in your org? And there are a lot of cases where organizations aren't able to sort of determine that readily or sort of hand that over with any kind of alacrity. This allows you to do that. The other thing it's really great for is for situations where your Salesforce org is in the scope of internal audit. Auditors often want to know what is the footprint of your Salesforce implementation, and this is a great way to do that. When you add an object dictionary that shows only those objects that are actively in use for your org to a field dictionary for each of those objects that shows precisely the fields that are in use with all of their field classification metadata and descriptions populated, you're in really good shape for a situation of internal audit. You're also in really good situation for future development and roadmap planning. Now, let's talk about a couple limitations before we close. If you look here, for my demo object, it has a description, and you can see that we have checkboxes as true for reports enabled, trackable, field history tracked, and searchable. For the account object, we don't have a description. It says that reports aren't enabled, even though we know out of the box accounts are reportable. Accounts can also have activities, and that's not checked, and you can certainly track field history on accounts as well. This is one of the limitations of standard objects at the level of object dictionaries. Because standard objects are not updatable at the level of the metadata that governs that object in the same way that a custom object is, we don't have the capacity to push these in even through the metadata API. So that is a limitation here. But for custom objects, you can put all of those things. Just to give you one more sense of this, we're going to look at the field history tracking. I'm going to hop back into setup. I'm going to go to the account object, to my fields and relationships. I'm going to set history tracking, and I'm going to enable it. And if I save this, actually we'll track one field. Let's say we'll do account name, and save that. If we go back to our object definition, it still shows that field history is not tracked. And if we go to our report and refresh it, it's going to say that field history is not tracked, even though manifestly it is. Again, a limitation of standard objects. That limitation notwithstanding, object dictionaries are incredibly powerful, and they're a great way to add a basic layer of data governance and data stewardship to your org, and also to be able to communicate the footprint of your org to internal and external parties. I hope you've enjoyed this series of videos on data dictionary reporting in Salesforce. We're scratching the surface here, even though we've gone into some depth on data dictionary reporting. And so we encourage you to dig in and to get familiar with data dictionary report types and what's available there to you, and think about all the context in which you might apply it. If this has been useful to you, we hope that you will like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, this is the Cloud Bureau and John signing off.